everybody, and welcome to Perspectives. I'm Sam Jones, and I'm just thrilled to death to have you here today. Before we meet our first guest, there's a little something I need to talk to you about that is very important, especially if you have a cell phone. We're going to show you a text that I got. Take a look at this text. First of all, it's a scam. That is a non-existent organization. They're trying two things. If you call that number, you've made your first mistake, because then they're in your phone. They can hack it. Second, what they're trying to do is to get money from you. You know, if you send them money to clear up whatever problem they're claiming, it's a lie. You just lost the money. So do not respond. Don't open it in your phone, kill it, get rid of it, and you may get it again. But I've yet to see anybody as persistent as this bunch of yahoos has turned out to be. And they're out of Massachusetts, but they can't seem to isolate them. They can't find them. And they may be bouncing their signal. We're not sure. They're not sure. But I wanted to warn you about it in case it pops up on your phone. There you are. Our first guest today is a friend of mine that goes back a few years, Eileen Bradshaw, President and CEO of Life Senior Services. Eileen, good to see you.
Good to see you, Sam.
Good to be seen, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
How are things with the Vintage magazine?
Good, they're busy. I'm really glad that you took a moment about that scam alert, because, you know, we get a lot of calls and we try to cover it in the magazine and in our education. People get scared when they're told they have an unpaid bill and
That's
they want
right.
to respond, and you know, 99.9% of the time, if you owe somebody money, they're not going to text you a link to pay it.
That's right.
So,
and the way that
don't
it's
do it.
worded,
Yep.
it's almost threatening, but not quite.
It terrifies a lot of people.
And we jumped all over it at our house when it came in, and come to find out it was a scam. And they're saying they're trying to isolate it too, and so are the folks, you know, in the Northeast.
Yes.
They can't seem to get it. This is the magazine I want to recommend to you. I got to tell you, there's information in there for all folks, all ages, and it's something you need to have coming to your home. How are things going with the magazine, by the way?
It's good. I think we have I'm really proud of the editorial team. You know, I think they do a great job. Our graphic designer is great. The magazine that you're holding up is an issue where we were featuring Cheech Marin. We have a good partnership with Tulsa Town Hall, so he gets access to interviews to some really cool people. So I love the magazine because, to your point, you know, it's geared for seniors, but we have young folks that read it, and even if you think 50 to 100, that's essentially 3 generations. So we work really hard to make sure it has broad appeal.
Well, I know when you stepped in, when you took over, you went from the frying pan to the fire because you were with the food bank.
Yes, sir.
Then you went into this, and I thought at the time, bless her heart, she's going to turn gray.
And right here, we have living proof.
Cheech, of course, is from Cheech and Chong. That's where everybody knows him from. What are the biggest obstacles you face in putting this together?
Well, truthfully, you know, print is expensive and mailing is expensive. So we don't have any lack of interest, I'm happy to say. You know, I'll be at the grocery store and somebody I've never met will flag me over and say, gosh, I love this magazine. So we're really happy about that, and we're really happy about the caliber of writers that are willing to work for what we're able to pay. But as print costs go up and mailing costs go up, you know, I think most print publications feel that squeeze.
Sure, and we're under a new administration, and Lord knows where that's going to end up going.
On so many fronts.
Yeah, on so many fronts. You don't solicit ideas from people, but they send them to you, don't they?
Absolutely. I probably get 5 phone calls a month personally with ideas, and I know that other members of our team do as well.
On the front of this one, your next favorite game, finding joy, connecting, challenging. Take your pastimes to the next level and under hobbies. New hobbies for the next year, enrich your life by doing something you love. A lot of people, when they reach a certain age, will just withdraw. And sometimes their children are not as attentive as they should be. I'm not saying this takes the place of the children, but it offers them a way to connect with others their age or younger.
I personally think, Life Senior Services has a myriad of services, right? Some of them are really fun, and some of them are maybe less fun, but very important. But if you look across every one of our service lines, to me, what we're really offering is connection. Because isolation, to your point, is the enemy of healthy aging. And so offering people ways to connect, whether it's the Active Senior Center or Adult Day Health or Medicare assistance or the magazine or volunteering, any of those things, as long as you stay engaged and plugged in. I mean, you said you're 81 and you're here doing perspectives. You're incredibly engaged in the world around you, and it shows. And not everybody has the opportunity to have a TV show, but just even getting out and taking a class or volunteering, really can forestall some of the negative effects of aging. And sometimes children are well-meaning. They may be really engaged with their parents, but they're a little overprotective, and they're saying, no, you don't need to drive here, you don't need to go there.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that backfires and really creates a more isolated environment than I think they want.
Well, I will tell you, I'll fess up here. Down the road, I can see a time coming when I shouldn't be driving. And I know it. And I think one of the hardest things I went through in my current life was when we had to take the keys away from my mother.
It's very hard.
Mom was, I'm going to do it my way type, A personality. And I had to bring in a friend of hers to help us convince her it was time to stop driving. And I know you've addressed these things in this magazine. There are so many things you've addressed.
We actually have independent case managers that can work with caregivers, like practice that conversation. There's driving schools where you can take your loved one to actually undergo a driving test, so then it takes all of the heat, some of the heat off of you as the child, because there's empirical evidence that maybe they shouldn't be driving. So a lot of difficult conversations we address in the magazine, but we also have human independent case managers that can walk you through that journey.
I have to share with you something that happened to me personally. I have a hearing problem. And so my doctor recommended I have my hearing checked. I went in, I had my hearing checked, and sure enough, in one ear, I've got a problem. And it turns out that years ago, I used to wear a thing called an IFB. It's an earpiece, so the control room could talk to me, changes I needed to make, and I'd follow directions. And without a volume control on that thing, it just go bam, like that. Well, it's like firing a gun next to your head. You do that for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and I've been in this business over 50 years. It took a toll. And I found out that people with hearing problems, if they don't address it, can soon totally withdraw.
Yes.
And then the problems really begin.
And we hear that a lot because people feel isolated. They may go out to dinner with friends and family. They can't hear, so they're not a part of the conversation. They feel slighted because they're not included, and they do withdraw. And hearing aids and devices can be very expensive. So again, that's something that people can pick up the phone and call Life and see if we can help them navigate.
Eileen, how do they get this magazine?
It's at a lot of different locations. You can go to Reesers, a lot of doctor's offices. You can also just call our office, 918-664-9000, or go to lifeseniorservices.org and subscribe. There's no charge I'm sorry, say that again? There is no charge if you live in Oklahoma and you want to subscribe. We do charge out-of-state subscribers, and a lot of people realize that it's expensive to print and they may make a $25 donation, but it's not required.
Okay, listen, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you're doing, because you are making a difference.
Thank you very
And
much.
the more people I know like that, the better I feel when I go to bed at night. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Sam, so much.
Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Woolaroc, and it's going to get interesting. Stay with me. And my next guests now are Shiloh Thurman and William Newby. Shiloh's the museum director at Woolaroc. William is their mountain man camp leader. Gentlemen, good to have you both here.
Well, thank you for having us.
I'll get to you in just a minute. Just relax. Tell us a little bit about your role.
Yeah, so I'm the museum director out there at Woolaroc. I've been museum director for going on somewhere around 10 years now, and I facilitate all the temporary art exhibits that come in and kind of oversee the museum just in general.
Where is it?
So Woolaroc's just outside of Barnesville. We're roughly about 12 miles outside of Barnesville to the south of there.
And short description of what is it?
Yeah, so Woolaroc was established in around 1925 by Frank Phillips. It was kind of his retreat. He grew up in an age whenever the Wild West was still alive. And so he wanted to have a place that really captured that essence. And so that's what Woolaroc was created as. It currently has his original lodge, his museum. It's a wilderness preserve as well, basically. We keep bison out there. We have longhorn elk. So, you have the museum, the lodge, the wildlife preserve, and then we also have a reenactment area too, living history component.
You had the president visit.
We did. That was back whenever Frank and Jane were still alive. So Harry Truman came out at one point in time and presented Jane with a photograph of himself and signed it. So that's actually on display in her bedroom.
In his book, and I'm going to mention my friend Michael Wallace. The book is Way Down Yonder in the Indian Nation. He devotes a full chapter to the ranch. And there's one thing that caught my eye when he talked about the outlaw feeds where the lawmen and the outlaws came together. No arrests were made. Everybody ate as one group, and they had buffalo. They had anything you could possibly want. They had they had pork, they had buffalo, they had beef, and nobody went hungry.
No, not at all. This was, going on from like the mid to late 20s up until the early 30s. And it was called the Cow Thieves and Outlaws Reunion. And we actually still do that to this day. It's not quite the same. It's our annual fundraiser now. But during Frank's time, he would bring in people from town, outlaws, lawmen, his investors from the East Coast, because it was kind of a marketing thing as well for him. But he had a couple of rules. You had to check your gun at the gate, and then the outlaws were allowed 24 hours after the party to get away before the lawmen were allowed to chase them. So, I mean, it was quite the shindig back then.
Oh, man, that is so cool. Shiloh, what are you?
Well, I am the head of the Mountain Man Camp. We're portraying the 1820s to 1840s fur trade. And so whenever you come down to see me there, whenever you come just past the first cattle guard and you look left, you're going to see a bunch of teepees and some horse camps. And that's where you're come down to see me. We open up March 19th. The first time we're run all the way through the summer till September 2nd. We have some bigger dates that are coming up for the spring and fall rendezvous, and that's where we have a bunch of camps out. That'll be April 11th and 12th and October 3rd and 4th. And so that's where you'll have about 100 to 150 mountain man camps out there, anything for the fur trade. But during the regular summer, you come down and I'll show you kind of how to throw a tomahawk. You end up shooting a long gun. And I'll tell you the expansion and how that fits in with Woolaroc as far as keeping that Western culture and heritage alive, just like what Frank wanted to do. And so more of a hands-on, experience with that. And of course, yard and telling as well. We might tell a couple of stories, but they're all true. They're all true.
Oh, of course. You wouldn't twist it in that, would you?
No, sir, not at all.
What kind of piece are you carrying?
So this right here is a Northwest trade gun. This is what they would be, a lot of the mountain men would be carrying. It would be a flintlock. So you have a piece of flint right here that will strike the prison. That will put that spark in that flash pan. And then you better hope your powder is dry. So on them cold, frosty mornings or a rainy day, you better keep your powder dry.
Which is where the old saying comes from.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Then, of course, that'll put that spark in through that barrel and run. And so that being said, this is a smooth bore. And so there's no rifling in there to give you accuracy. So you better be a cut above to be a mountain man, because that ball, once it goes down there, it's just wherever you pointed. And so it's a lot of fun, and a lot of people that never even got to handle a gun like this come out to Woolaroc and get to handle one of these. And we try to get everybody through as much as we can. A lot of it is how outnumbered I am.
Is there a fee to go to Woolaroc?
There's one fee, but it covers going to the lodge, the museum, things that are going on out there. Like sometimes we'll have like a kids fest or something like that. It also covers going to the mountain man camp as well.
Mm-hmm. Do folks understand when they go to Woolaroc, they're stepping back in time?
You know, I don't think initially, if it's their first visit, they really think of that to begin with. You know, people typically, if they're planning a visit to Woolaroc, they allow for about an hour of time, typically, is what I've discovered. But really, it takes 4 hours to a full day, because you are stepping back in time, and there's so much to experience because you're completely encompassed by that. You just have so much time that's spent at the museum, at the mountain man camp, and so on. It takes a serious amount of time to go through all of Woolaroc offers.
I'm going to direct this question at both of you because I'd like a reaction from both of you. Is the spirit of Frank alive and still out there?
So I think so. Frank, whenever he established Woolaroc, and then whenever they turned it over to, created a foundation, turned it over to the Board of Trustees, our mission is to preserve the history of the West, to educate and to entertain. Mm-hmm. And that was directly coming from Frank Phillips, and that's what he wanted Woolaroc to be. And I think that we still meet all of those criteria that he established that long ago.
I absolutely know so. It's one of those things, whenever you look what Frank wanted to set up and how the trustees are running it and how we have the leaders above us, what they're trying to hold on and keep that Western culture alive, to see, and it doesn't matter what age you are, you come out, you can see that spark. It doesn't matter if, Woolaroc's where I learned to appreciate paintings. Whenever I was a young kid, I never really looked at the paintings. But you look at those paintings and they come to life, and it captures that West. And then you come down to Mountain Man Camp and it brings it to life firsthand.
That's great. Jim Hamilton.
Yes. Jim Hamilton, we're actually having a tribute show dedicated to Jim Hamilton, who was a sculptor out of Pawhuska. He actually grew up as a rancher and then didn't start sculpting until later in life, in his mid-40s. And so we are in partnership with a local university, Oklahoma Wesleyan University, who actually have all these sculptures. There's going to be upwards of 30 to 40 pieces that are going to be featured in this show. And the opening for it, we have a members opening on March 27th with an opening to the public on March 28th.
Okay, and then they can get more by going to your website, right?
Yes, yeah, that'll all be featured on the website.
And what is your website?
It's www.woolaroc.org.
Guys, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And keep us posted. Keep us on your mailing list. Let us know what's going on out there, okay?
I will.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Maybe we can do this again.
that sounds great.
All right. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with our final guest right after this. Jordan Korphage is Director of Communications at Owasso Public Schools, and he's joined now by Zach Duffield, Executive Director of Athletics for the district. Guys, good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having
I
us.
get the impression, because we're going to be talking about a bond issue, and I don't know of any district that push a bond issue unless you guys had a lot of kids coming. Is Owasso growing that fast?
I mean, it's definitely growing. It's a growing community. I feel like every time you turn around, there's some kind of new business opening. We've got apartment complexes going up, homes being built. So, yeah, I think absolutely we're a growing community, and I think as we look at the numbers when we were going through this bond planning process, we saw that reflected in about a 6% growth on average annually, for the last, I think, 10 years or so. So it's definitely been growing, which is exciting. We've got lots of new things, and it's a real attractive place to be, real good place to be, and yeah, we have a lot lots of students, lots of families, and we're just obviously looking and trying to serve them as best we can.
This bond issue is, if I read it right, 197 million or in change. Is that going to solve all your problems?
I don't know if it'll solve all our problems, but you know, the biggest thing that it will do for us is add a full-day pre-K program. Owasso is really one of the few districts, school districts in the area that has a half-day pre-K program. And as you can imagine, that presents some challenges for some families. So 2 years ago, we went through a strategic planning process in the district, and the goal was to build a 5-year strategic plan. And we wanted to talk to stakeholders, community members, parents, teachers, and find out what are some of the things that you would like to see from the district. Where do you want to see us go? And one of the things that was really identified throughout that process was a need and a desire from the community for full-day pre-K. So probably the biggest piece of this bond, as you look at it, is a fifth grade center. And so the fifth grade center, moving our fifth graders out of the elementary schools into to their own space, will create classroom space at all 9 of our elementaries that we can then fill with pre-K students. So currently we only have space for an AM and a PM pre-K class. Each of those classrooms has 20 kids. Mm-hmm. So you're talking 40 kids total across 9 elementary schools. That's only about 360 kids that are able to be served. Whereas, you know, if this were to pass and we have that extra space, an average class size for us right now is anywhere from 675 to about 750 kids.
Zach, with all the children coming in and at the rate it's growing, are you concentrating on primarily soccer or all athletics?
Well, I think that's something we always try to work on, is to have all of our athletics compete at a high level. And throughout the years, we've been able to add different facilities for those sports. And soccer is next up on our list. And that's something that we're excited about, being able to bring a soccer complex. Currently, our soccer team is one of the few big schools that plays on the football field, and for them to have their own space. If you get there in the spring, you've got our soccer teams, our off-season football, our track and cross country, all vying for the same space right now.
Yeah. So
we're
they
excited
all need
to
space.
give them their own home, if you will.
Yeah. With all the children coming in, this bond issue is a major necessity, isn't it?
It's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal for our community. It's kind of a game changer, if you will, for Owasso schools to be able to run a bond of this magnitude and affect this many things. Not just, everyone thinks I'm the athletic director, so I just talk about athletics, but our fine arts programs, our art program, we'll start an elementary art program, let alone our yearly needs that we take care of through bond issues. A lot of safety and security needs are on this bond issue as well. Performing arts, we're going to build actually a new, smaller performing arts center, along with a black box theater for not only just our choirs and our theater arts programs, but also just to have another space for our community to be able to use. So, it's exciting. It's pretty big. It covers a lot. But
This is really a major endeavor.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it took us 2 years to plan this bond. Got a lot of community feedback, a lot of stakeholder feedback. We really looked at what the needs of the district were, and this will address a lot of those needs.
Well, gentlemen, we're out of time already. I mean, we've gone through a lot, but you've given us a lot. Will you keep us posted?
Of course.
And let us know how the vote goes, and also what the needs are and how you're going to tackle it.
February 11th is the day of the vote, and again, if anyone needs any additional information, we've got project renderings and some informational videos on our website, owassops.org.
That's great. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are out of time, my friend. We'll be back here next week. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.